The real question is, why did I even want to do this presentation in the first place? And if it comes down to two elements, I can really break down maybe like 10 to 15 different questions that I had that really brought me to doing Portal to Ascension. But if there are two questions that have been in my mind for quite a few, a couple decades at least for now, and even when I was a kid, really, I did contemplate these, is the questions that I think most of humanity may have. Or if they take time to even think about it, because we're so consumed with, the day-to-day mundane and the day-to-day tasks that a lot of us don't have the time to even think about this. But who are we, right? Like, what does that even mean? Who are we really? What are we? We're sentient conscious beings on this planet. We're walking around this planet. We're unable to interact and communicate with specific animals intentionally and consciously. We don't really remember anything except for this life, but we can now believe, and we can even prove that past lives do exist. But why don't we remember that? Who are we? And then where did we come from? Did we evolve as just a regular being on this planet and one day become sentient through the usage of maybe psychedelic mushrooms, like one theory suggests? Did we come here from another planet? Were we on here already before? And then some beings came down to this planet and genetically mutated us, and then we became another type of species on a planet. So where do we come from? And those are the questions that led me to even wanting to discuss what we're going to be discussing today. But there are a couple things that we need to understand and establish before we continue. It's important to create a foundation for the information that's going to be shared. What we know, and I'm saying no because I believe there's enough evidence to prove that this isn't theory. We are not alone in the universe, right? And at one point, you would hear, that aliens probably have not, come to Earth before. That was something a couple decades ago, and admitted by, I mean, thought by a lot of people. And now it's more like, oh, where the universe is so vast, in order for us to believe that we're the only ones in the universe, it's very arrogant. That's pretty much the consensus right now, whether you're a conscious disclosure person or whether you're a person who has no idea any of the information that we're sharing today. So we're not alone in the universe. And part of this establishing this foundation, I'm going to share later in the presentation when we go over declassified and documents on the fact that UFOs and ETs are real. And then humans are collectively experiencing amnesia. The reason I can say that is that if you've checked out any of the recent documentaries on reincarnation and the stories that people have, it's pretty much a no-brainer that individuals do come back, souls do come back. They do, whether it's called reincarnation or whether it's simultaneously living the same lives, because time doesn't exist in the form that we know it. So which one ever it is, the fact is that if we can prove that there are other lives that do exist and we've lived them and we can't remember them, what is that? That is amnesia. We're collectively experiencing an amnesia. There are ways to put that amnesia to the side, and I'll be speaking about that a little bit later, but I believe that is something that we can say that we know. The sources for today's presentation, there's more than this now that I've added much more information, but just to break it down, where the sources are for this presentation is the Prism of Lyra book is one place that I have a lot of galactic origins information from. The Sumerian Tablets of Creation, because that was really my first introduction to all of this information entirely. Other ancient scriptures from around the world, some channeled material, peer-reviewed science and articles, the Old Testament, one of the most interesting history books on the planet, one, because there's so many, and Dolores Cannon, Life Between Life and Past Life Regressions. So Barbara Lamb's info, Dolores Cannon's info, being hypnotherapists that have taken people into life between lives and also life on other planets. So hypnotherapy, the Akashic Records, those that claim to pull information from the Akashic Records, NASA and space agency images and discoveries, research studies and laboratory tested results, hypnosis, as I said a little earlier, whistleblower testimony, three-letter agencies, and many other speakers and researchers. When we talk about galactic origins, I feel it's an important thing to note that there are two components when it comes to our origin stories. There's prehistory and there's Earth history stories. And there's basically prehistory is before Earth, like before time and space, when it was just time and space, or even before time and space even existed. And Earth history is Earth history. It's the history of our planet, whether it's the Garden of Eden on our planet, whether it's different ETs and beings living in different areas on our planet, or whether it's a recent origin story of how the Aztecs came out of a cave in Central America and with different tribes and then inhabited to create the great Aztec Empire. All those stories. So there's two distinct type of stories we see in origin stories of humanity. We see prehistory, we see Earth history. Sometimes we have a combination of both, and sometimes we have pre-deluge, which is pre-flood story, and post-deluge stories as well. And then there's Earth history examples would be something like the Sumerian scriptures, the Greeks, they have the stories of the gods on Earth and what they did, but it can also be kind of, there is a fine line there because they could be talking about celestial occurrences that even occurred before these beings came to Earth. And then we have Egypt's origin stories and so much more that really have an earthly component to it. A good example of prehistory would be something like this. Well, when it comes to science, it would be like this. Cosmological models maintain that 13.8 billion years ago, the entire mass of the universe was compressed into a gravitational singularity, the so-called cosmic egg, from which it expands to its current state following the Big Bang. So, of course, conventional science believes there was the Big Bang, right? And in the Big Bang, after that, there was an infinite mass, and it was right there in a singularity right in the center, and there was some sort of explosion that pushed everything out, and that is the scientific conventional model. It's if you can tell right here, it says cosmic egg, and if you look at my creation stories presentation, you'll notice that the cosmic egg is actually a metaphysical word, is actually used throughout origin stories a lot. So the fact that conventional science models actually use the same word is very interesting. And then the metaphysical terminology is the cosmic egg represents potentiality. And this is my own definition of it. Um, the cosmic egg represents potentiality. It is the pre-creation held within the chaos, waiting to become the chaos. This duality then sets up conflict found throughout the world mythology, the duality of chaos and order, good and evil, light and dark, love and hate. So again, the cosmic egg, let's look at it and compare the two. We have the science model of the infinite singularity mass, which is a cosmic egg. Now, in metaphysics, we're talking about the same thing, the cosmic egg. What does it represent? Unlimited potential. What else is it? The metaphorical terminology for infinite singularity with all matter and all existence and all creation in it is infinite potential. It is it was the order that became chaos. It was the division, the duality that sprung from it all. So our galactic origin stories are actually a combination of both of those, prehistory and Earth history. Because what is galactic origins? Whatever took place to lead towards the birth, the incarnation of humans on this planet, and led us up to this day that we're at right now. So our galactic origins might be a story of how we might have sprouted and started, and even started isn't even the proper word because that implies time, but how we started within the cosmos and then continues up until how we got here today. Humanity's journey from inception to this current linear experience. It introduces the concept of a paradox, of there being an origin when time is only a construct of our position in space relative to the sun. So the paradox in that statement that I made right there implies that there is an origin, that there is a beginning, right? But we know that time is only a construct of Earth's position from our sun. Time exists in all types of ways, fluidity in all types of ways, but the linear time we have is that position. So it implies there is a paradox there. So what is the universal paradox? As I really evolved with this information over the last 20 years or so, pretty early, in this awareness, I realized that there was a paradox. And the first component of how I realized that was the fact that there is an infinite universe, right? We call the universe infinite. And we also know the universe is constantly expanding now. It used to be thinking that it would expand and contract, right? If it expands and contract, doesn't that imply it's finite? If it's infinitely expanding, doesn't it imply that it's not fully expanded yet? And if it's not fully expanded yet and it's infinitely expanding forever, how does that work? Because the only thing that can continue to expand is something that's finite. So if you have something that's finite, it can continue to get bigger. But how can something that's infinite continually become infinite? A paradox. So to me, that implies the illusion. It's all holographic in my mind. The fact that either one, it's a holographic creation, and that could be a huge component to it, or our brains are not fully able to process the frequency of understanding what a paradox is. The only thing we can do is accept a paradox, but we can't understand it because paradoxes should not exist. A great example of a paradox: quantum physics, Newtonian physics. Quantum physics, guys, is a paradox to Newtonian physics. The laws of quantum physics do not match Newtonian physics. The quantum physics says Newtonian physics should not exist. Newtonian physics says quantum reality, quantum world should not exist. They both contradict each other. However, Newtonian physics, everything above an atom, everything that is an atom and above, everything that is an atom and above, Newtonian physics is a paradox and contradicts the science of everything that is subatomic. So there's a paradox there. So another one is time exists, but it also does not exist, right? Like, as I said earlier, we have this construct between us and the sun. So if you want to look at just time like that, as soon as you step outside of our atmosphere, now you're experiencing time completely differently. And then most of the people here would even have the component of time is just a construct of this linear dimension, that when you go into different dimensions, higher dimensions or parallel realities, time could be experienced differently or may not even exist at all. So that too is a paradox. And then we are solid beings, yet we're also vibrating frequency that have no form or shape. Paradox. How on earth, pun intended, can we be solid beings and also have no shape and be complete frequencies made out of the same exact frequency as everything around me, including this desk? It's just static frequency. So that's a paradox. So understanding and accepting that there's a universal paradox led me down this pathway of realizing how that connects into the galactic origins. But before we begin our story of our galactic origins, let's break down what dimensions are and the mechanics of our galaxy. And you can see down here in this image at the bottom just a few concepts of what dimensions are. One dimension, we have the line. Two dimensions, we have length and height. And then three dimensions, we have height, length, and width. So what are dimensions? Physics and mathematicians say a dimension of space is defined as the minimum number of coordinates needed to specify any point within it. Therefore, a line has a dimension of 1 because only one coordinate is needed to specify a point on it. Okay? And in spirituality and consciousness, what is a dimension? A realm, and again, this is my definition that I created, a realm and or a frequency of experience that can be obtained through various forms of conscious awareness, soul contracts, karmic agreements, and more. I had to throw more in there because I don't really know, right, how we can obtain all these dimensional experiences. But a realm or frequency of experience is what I like better. I like to say that more than higher dimension. Because when we say the word higher dimension, we're implying that it's better than, it's higher than, there's a hierarchy. Some people may not have that connotation when they say it, but a lot of people may. They'd be like, oh, I can't, that person's so higher dimensional, right? We're going into a higher dimension, it's going to be better for humanity. That implies that what we're having now and this experience now is not good for humanity. But I really feel that all the experiences that we have within our dimensions, whatever dimension we're in, are all good because they're all clocking in experiences. We wouldn't have been allowed to come on this planet to have the experience of duality if it was so bad that it wasn't supposed to happen at all, right? So the experiences that we're having, the dualistic experiences, are various forms of experience that can be obtained through conscious awareness. And we have, as I'll show later, we have the ability within our own bodies to obtain those levels of awareness. What are dimensions? The world as we know it has 3 dimensions. You've heard 3D quite a lot. 3 dimensions of space, length, width, and depth, and 1 dimension of time, the 4th dimension. Physicists and mathematicians and spiritualists all believe the possibility that many more dimensions exist. According to string theory, the physical universe operates within 10 dimensions. So I have my own belief on that. I think it's actually 12 dimensions of physicality within the incarnational cycle of this galaxy. But they're even trying to figuring it out now, right? Mainstream science is saying what metaphysicists have been saying for 1,000+ years. And there are also different types of dimensions. Dimension is such a broad word that when somebody says to me, what is a dimension? Unless I have an opportunity to show them 20 minutes of slides, I really can't just explain it in one component, because what dimension are you talking about? What kind of dimension are you talking about? It's used for many overlapping and seemingly independent concepts. For example, we have parallel dimensions. We have physical dimensions of this reality, of this timeline. We have spiritual dimensions. We have dimensions in the galaxy. We have realms of no dimensions at all. We have the void. We have a dimension within a dimension. These are different components that have been thrown out there as possibilities of existing. So just to say the word dimension isn't really explanatory. When most of what I'm going to be talking about today, except for the part when we get into time travel, which is going to be interesting, but what most of them I'm expressing today are dimensions with are probably really the 12 dimensions, including the 13th, which is the void, of different experiences that we can incarnate into and tap into within our own galaxy. So it is important to realize that these concepts and titles may have been spiritually informed, but are also human constructs based on perception and unique experience on Earth. If we did not exist on Earth, if Earth didn't exist at all and humans didn't exist, dimensions, parallel realities, physical, spiritual, the void, the black hole in the center of a galaxy, all of those things will still be there, right? Well, I guess it depends on who you ask. It's all about if the tree falls in the forest, does anybody hear it, right? But all of those things would really still be there, because if we weren't here right now, Earth just vanished, it would still be there. So when we're calling fourth, third, second, first dimension, astral reality, parallel dimension, every one of those terms are all human constructs, human words designed to explain universal concepts that would exist whether we have the words to explain them or not. So it's important to do that, because otherwise you can label and identify it with things too much by saying like fifth dimension or something like that. Whereas that's just a human construct as well. And it's great because we give the labels to the things that we want to, but knowing that we've also imposed these constructs on it and made it into a hierarchy and all this stuff is a good thing to know moving forward. So we're going to get into the Milky Way galaxy in just a moment here, but just a little detour before we do that. And this, I actually just added this about, let me see how long ago, like an hour and a half ago, I added this part to this presentation because I really wanted to explore the concept of time travel a little bit. Time travel. Well, we have now found out that as we go closer to the speed of light, time begins to warp and it seems to slow down for that individual object. If I was standing somewhere in the middle of some stadium and you were going around me at light speed travel and you went around me for years, what seemed like years for me, chances are you would stop traveling and you would be the same age or just a tiny bit older than the moment you started. But I'll be, say that you've been driving around me for 10 years, I'll be 10 years older, right? So when you go closer and closer to the speed of light, time begins to slow down, and the belief is when you get to the speed of light, time stops. So if you're able to travel at the speed of light, it may take you years, but you would not age. That is one of the theories. Theoretically, at the speed of light, time stops because you're traveling at the same speed as the light. So if time is just a reflection of the light that comes to my eyes and the distance that it traveled, if I'm traveling at the same speed as the light, I'm traveling at the same speed that the time is basically going forward. So the theory is that we would not age. And then also time travel, there are theories that bending space time, if we're able to bend space and time somehow, create some sort of device, we can actually jump ahead in distance within our universe and actually go forward and back in time. And also wormholes, traveling through wormholes, FTL travel, which is faster than light travel, and then going through parallel dimensions in order to go time. These are some of the theories of ways that we can have time travel. And then some other components of what is believed to maybe happen if we were to time travel. So let's be theoretical right now. Let's just say that we were able to time travel And what would happen? So here are a few different scenarios that I outlined that are theories of what could actually occur during a time travel moment. So you can go back in time to this timeline right here, right now, right? So you're in this timeline right here, and I go back to the same timeline that I'm in, and I make a change that changes this moment that I'm in right now. So go back in time, and then all of a sudden, when I go back to this time right here, the moment has been changed and everything shifts. This is very similar. Actually, this is the one from Back to the Future. Basically, this is like, okay, I go back in time, made a mistake. Biff got the magazine with all the sports numbers in it for the next decade or whatever. Becomes rich. I go back into my future. He's married my mom. Right. That was Back to the Future, and he's rich and he hates me. So that is the one from Back to the Future right there. And then another one is when you can go back in time, you can actually jump into another parallel timeline, and it does not affect the past of your current time. So if you went back in time right now from this moment here, instead of going back to the same timeline, it's not possible. All parallel realities, all parallel dimensions exist simultaneously. So the moment that you're traveling back to is actually existing right now. So you move back to a different timeline that then has a whole different outcome, but you don't actually affect the timeline you came from. The timeline you came from is missing you because you've gone now. When you go back in time, you go to here's number 3. When you go back in time, you go to the same timeline, but when you make a change, it breaks off into a new timeline, and then there are now 2 distinct timelines from the original timeline. So you can go back in time right now, and you do not do anything different. You just like hang out, you watch, and then you come back, and everything's fine. But you go back in time, and then you maybe stop something from happening. Then when you come back in time, you don't go back to your same timeline. You go back to a parallel timeline that you've just created. That's theory number 3. And then if we were to go faster than light, theoretically, we're able to go back in time. So if we go as fast as the speed of light, now we are at the same speed of time. But if we go faster than the speed of light, technically time should start reversing. And that's what happens when we have black holes and wormholes, where time bends, light bends. A great example of time travel is the fact that the sunlight from our sun takes 8 minutes and 20 seconds to arrive at our eyes, which means that we're seeing the sun how it was about 8 minutes ago. So time travel is happening all the time. If they're, as a kid growing up, I would hear in my science class on occasion that if the sun supernovaed, right, it would take us 8 minutes and 20 seconds before we even felt the effects or even see the supernova in the sky. So there's some sort of time dilation going on there. So time travel is happening all the time. There's some scientists now. The reason why I'm getting into time travel is because there's actually some new information on time travel that I'm about to share with you. The universe, time travel paradox. The universe will cease to exist if you see yourself. That's another theory of time travel. So you've probably seen time travel movies before in which the individual goes back in time and they're like, oh, do not see yourself. Do not interact with your younger self. It will create a paradox and the universe as we know it will cease to exist. First of all, that was just done completely for dramatic effects. So it's not like those studios were looking into the science. So, but however, a lot of people have this belief now, and it's actually shared within scientific community, something called the grandfather complex. Do not see yourself do not go back in time and see yourself, timelines will collapse and all the universe will collapse. So new studies are showing that this is probably not true. Here is some research that came out back in September of 2020. So only like 5 months ago. And I'm going to read a little bit from this. Okay, say you traveled in time and attempted to stop the current world situation from being exposed to this thing. However, if you stop that individual from becoming infected, that would eliminate the motivation for you to go back and stop the pandemic in the first place. So that includes a paradox right there. It's an inconsistency. So if you go back and stop something, the whole purpose of you even going there in the first place no longer exists, and everything could collapse as we know it. Or we have the grandfather paradox, in which a time traveler kills their own grandfather in the process of preventing the time traveler's birth in the first place. So the logical paradox has given researchers a headache, in part because according to Einstein's theory of general relativity, closed timeline curves are possible. But these researchers say that a paradox wouldn't necessarily exist because events would adjust themselves. So I'm just going to show you these two articles and comment on here right now. So what they're doing through their research, including research with the Hydrogen Collider in Geneva, is that they're realizing, or they believe, that when you actually go back in time, all the things that occur, any issues or any situations that you shift and change, will actually automatically correct themselves to have the same outcome. Say you go back in time and then you stop Kennedy from being assassinated. What happens in the universe is that the universe does not want to create a paradox in that moment. So all these other elements will shift in order to bring the same outcome to the timeline that you're at. So this is now what researchers are saying in regards to their research for time travel. Yeah, time is a linear phenomena, but then if we go into different dimensions where there's another element of time could still exist, but maybe it's a little more fluid, or maybe there are 3 points of time rather than just having 2 components. All right, everybody. I want to officially welcome you to your home galaxy, the Milky Way. Our galaxy, the Milky Way, is speeding through space and Earth, traveling through space at 1.3 million miles per hour. We are going 25 miles per second closer to the center of the Milky Way galaxy. And as some of you may know, in the center of our galaxy is a supermassive black hole. We're also traveling alongside our local cluster of stars 375 miles a second toward what is known as the Virgo cluster, an enormous collection of galaxies 45 million light years away. And in our galaxy, we see all these beautiful patterns that seem to be common, not just on Earth and even to the finite of or the infinitesimal pieces of our mitosis and our cells and how our cells divide, but we see the same geometry throughout the cosmos. So there's some sort of design going on here, some sort of laws that it seems that creation is actually following. And you can see here, we have the Milky Way galaxy that is following the Fibonacci spiral, but then there are other types of galaxies. The spiral galaxy is one of the most common forms of galaxies that there are, but there are other galaxies that seem to go by different ways, different geometrical shapes, or even maybe have different elements of physics that are playing out there. And this meme here on the left that many have probably seen is one that really shows the as above, so below. We have, of course, the sacred geometry starting at the circle to the Vesica Pisces, to the seed of life, to the flower of life. Then we have the cosmos and how the cosmos are created and nebula and galaxies are created. And then we have mitosis. You can see that they're all very similar. So what is actually occurring on the grand scale, on the macro scale in the universe through the creation of galaxies and nebulae and whatever is the same thing that is happening on the micro level within our own bodies and how all physical matter is being created. But the part that I'm really excited about is the fact that this sacred geometry has been utilized by ancient civilizations for years. And we're now realizing the sacred geometry is a representation of the division of our cells and also the creation of universe and galaxy, right? So these individuals that were using this artwork maybe had some sort of connection or understanding of these components already and created beautiful art in order to express it. This right here is a snapshot, an intersection of the Milky Way galaxy. So this line that we see right here in the center is actually the photon belt, which is the high concentration of ether within our galaxy, right? So the milk of the Milky Way galaxy is this right here. Humans and the trajectory of our planet is right here. You see the line that's going all the way down up above. So not only are we going and rotating, and let me show you with my hands here. Not only are we rotating around our Milky Way galaxy, but we're also going around in spirals around that. So that we have multiple rotations going on, right? So we're going, here's the Milky Way, this core and center. We're going all the way around. And then we're also going like this around the Milky Way. The milk of the Milky Way galaxy, and then the trajectory of planet Earth, right? And then we have years over here. So around 10,000 BC, we're in the night sky. When you look into the sky, you see the constellation of Leo, right? And that's over here, 10,000 BC. And then every 2,000 years or so, the constellations in the night sky change, right? And then we got to what? We get to the birth of Christ, 4 BC. you know. And then 2,000 years later, in the year of and we're in the age of Pisces, we get to the age of Aquarius, which is right about this time. And what this shows is the trajectory of the planet Earth through the galactic center. So we have been at the bottom of it for around 13,000 something years, and now we're going to the top side of it, which is the different polarity. So the belief is that this is also how we're ascending. Well, we've been in this duality in this Kali Yuga, which is down here, known as the Dark Ages in ancient Sanskrit scriptures, and now we're going up into this polarized positive ascension, and then we go down again and we start all over. This is a image of our Milky Way galaxy. And in a moment, I'm going to show you that the positioning of our planet in our galaxy isn't what we thought it was and have been told for quite a while now. And as you can see right here, there's 30,000 years from the edge of our 30,000 light years from the edge of our Milky Way galaxy all the way to the galactic core. So 30,000 on each side. The galactic core has a specific amount of length as well, but there's around 60,000 light years on, if you include both sides, just to go to the center of our galaxy. And if you can read this in the bottom right here, I'm going to read this part. The solar system wobbles up and down 200 light years either side of the galaxy's disk. Okay, this is mainstream conventional science here. I think this is from science.org. When it wobbles above, Earth may be exposed to more cosmic waves from the galaxy's bow shock. So conventional scientists have realized that the galaxy emits some sort of bow shock, and the bow shock actually goes what is on the top of the galactic center. It spews this energy, this radiation, or whatever it is, to the top. When we're in this element right here, the scientists are saying that there is some sort of frequency, some sort of bow shock of cosmic rays that are actually bombarding everything on top of it, which could actually go to the whole notion that that's an ascended world, that we're being hit with these cosmic rays, and through these rays, we're able to live a more empowered life. A lot of hidden truths are being disclosed. So that could be connected to it right there. But it's interesting that they're saying that there are cosmic waves and they are going above. And it also says we go up and down 200 light years on either side of the galaxy's disk. Here's the galaxy's disk, 200 light years down, 200 light years up. And that is our trajectory. Now, here is the Milky Way galaxy. And if you notice, the position of Earth seems to be almost in the middle of the Milky Way galaxy. Whereas I grew up being told that we're on the last arms of the Milky Way galaxy, you're right at the end of the galaxy. And now, because of new scientific evidence and satellites, they're realizing that we actually aren't all the way at the end. We're closer to the end than we are to the center, but we're almost at the center of the distance between the end of our galaxy and the galactic center, supermassive black hole in the middle of our galaxy. And here is another one right here. And another image of our positioning. So how much you can see depends on where the sun is in relation to the Milky Way core. So as the Earth goes around the sun, seeing the larger part of the Milky Way occurs around February to November. The more we see, what we see in our cosmos is directly connected to our positioning in relation to the galactic core. But what is the galactic core? Well, the galactic core seems to be a supermassive black hole that has the mass of 4 million suns. And next to the black hole in the center of our galaxy is a constellation called Sagittarius A. It is located at the center of the Milky Way galaxy, and it lies in the direction of the Sagittarius constellation near the border with Scorpius. It is the location of the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy. So we believe that Sagittarius A is the entrance to the area where the supermassive black hole is. The black hole lies at a distance of 26,000 light years from Earth. So the whole trajectory right here of us going up and down, approximately 25 to 26,000 years. The zodiac, also 25 to 26,000 years. The distance from Earth to the center of our galaxy, around the same amount of time. if not the same time. These are all estimated numbers they're giving, but all the estimated numbers say around 26,000. So it looks like that 26,000 year cycle is we're connected on many levels. And it could be 13,000 years of this ascended reality, and then 13,000 years of a more dualistic experience. And that keeps going on and on. But then if you look at the Hindu scriptures, there are actually cycles within cycles. There's the dark age of the golden age. There's a silver age and a bronze age of the golden age, right? Where we still have gone through many challenges, but we still have some sort of dualistic experiences that come up. So to say that we go through 13,000 years of enlightenment and then 13,000 years of darkness in the conventional sense that we've been experiencing on Earth may not exactly be true. Now we're finding out Earth is actually much closer to the supermassive black hole than we thought. And here is an image of Sagittarius A, which is supposed to be close to the location of the black hole. The reason why I keep saying close to the location of the black hole is because of what? Well, black holes are black. They're dark. You can't even see light escaping from it. So it's very difficult to find a black hole. And when they first believed black holes existed, it was a theory. They believed that they could exist. They didn't even prove it yet. And then now they proved it. And then 3 or 4 years ago, they released the first image of a black hole sucking in light that's around it, right? Some people say it's a fake image, who knows? But that the supermassive black hole is located somewhere around there because of the whole component of the fact that we can't really see the black hole. We can only see the light around it. And if you looked at the galactic center, you would, if you weren't like informed at all growing up, I guess you would probably believe like, why is there so much light there if it's a black hole? Well, the whole thing is that there are the suns and the light and the planets around the black hole are so super dense and compacted together that when we look in that direction, all we see is light. What we're doing in this moment is still creating a great foundation for realizing the way our galaxy, where our Milky Way galaxy works, but also the universe. And part of that is knowing what is happening in a galaxy that we probably don't know. This is something that many of you may not have come across before, that there's actually a galaxy that we are currently integrating into our own galaxy as we speak. And it's been happening for quite some time. When I grew up, I was told that we're heading on a collision course for the Andromeda Galaxy. In a few billion years from now, we're going to collide. The galaxies might unite. They might dissipate. I don't know if any of you have heard that as well, but that's what I was taught. Now, I mean, whether that's still true or not, I haven't done my research to see, like, are they still saying that same thing? But that brings me to this. Well, it's actually happening right now. There's actually a dwarf galaxy that's called the Sagittarius Galaxy, not to be confused with Sagittarius A, which is what I just showed you, which is a constellation within the Milky Way. But there is a galaxy called the Sagittarius Galaxy, represented by this pinkish, orangish, reddish kind of blob right here. And these trajectories, these lines right there, are the matter being broken up by the gravity of our galaxy. And this is happening for around 8 billion years. It's been integrating into our galaxy. And the next slide I'm going to show is a GIF that is actually going to show you the last 8 billion years of what has happened to this galaxy and how it's integrated into Earth. So here we go. We're going to start at 8 billion years ago, 5.7 billion years ago, 3 billion years ago, 1.9 billion years ago, 1 billion years ago. Now, here we go again. So I'm going to show you that again. And watch, see that for quite a few billion years, this galaxy was rotating around us. And then it started to break apart and get integrated. And now we're in a whole different, it looks completely different aesthetically because it's actually pulling in matter from all over our galaxy, almost as an infinity spiral. So here we go again. 8 billion years ago. Okay, 5.7 starts breaking up. 3 billion years ago starts tail end. 1.9 billion years ago. And then boom, 1 billion years ago, now we have like an infinity spiral going on in a galaxy as that component adds. And what happens when a galaxy breaks up and starts rejoining our galaxy? The matter, the particles all start breaking up, and then they get formed into nebula. They get formed and part of other planets and other constellations and gets integrated. And sometimes there's evidence to suggest that planets, rogue planetary bodies, leave different galaxies from some sort of traumatic event, or maybe not even, and go to other galaxies. And this could be one of the ways that this happens. And here's another way that that could happen. This is from NASA's own website. This is something that has occurred in our past within our galaxy. See if you can follow. I know the text right here is a little small, so I'll read it out. So number one here, we're going to look at this. There was a triple star system, right, that was close to the black hole in the center of our galaxy. Triple star system. So we're not talking about a binary star system. We're talking about 3 suns rotating. And then it moves closer to the center of the Milky Way galaxy. One of these stars falls towards the black hole in the center of a galaxy, gets pulled away. The binary pair, the other 2 pair, gets shot off into space, out of our galaxy. The binary system leaves the galaxy, number 3 right here, and then they form together, and they become what's known as a blue straggler. And then the blue straggler goes off into the depths of space to who knows where. So these are kind of things that are happening in a galaxy all the time, being interacted with all types of celestial bodies. Now back to the galactic core. The horizontal streak of bright stars across the center of the image is the plane of the Milky Way. As I said earlier, some call it the photon belt, some call it the milk of the Milky Way, some call it the ether. The galaxy's center is the bright white spot in the middle of the photo, where hot massive stars are crowding together. It's believed to be a supermassive black hole. And my theory is that the closer to the black hole, the more rapid or shift there is in a frequency. Because the gravity of the black hole is so intense, and I'll show you in a minute how fast stars can rotate around this sun. Frequency is so intense that it's literally shifting your vibration and frequency. So it might be impossible for third-dimensional life to even live over there, because of the fact that the frequency is so much, the suns are so packed together, the heat level is probably extremely high. And then the question is the black hole in the center of our galaxy dormant, or is it actually sucking things in as we speak? This leads to the element of white holes. And, I came across this information once, like briefly, about a white hole, and it just stuck in my head forever. And ever since then, I've been like routinely researching it and just trying to figure out, what could this white hole be? Because even scientists, they haven't perceived a white hole. A white hole is actually a hypothetical region of space-time and singularity, which cannot be entered from the outside, although energy, matter, light, and information can escape from it. So what is a white hole? The 100% opposite of a black hole. In this universe, it's believed that if we have a black hole, there needs to be a white hole, right? So not sure if we have observed it yet, but in theory, it should exist. Possible white holes, though, so we could have observed it, but not known that there were white holes. So possible white holes are the other side of a black hole. Makes sense. Well, light goes through the black hole, comes out of the other side into another universe, another dimension, another parallel reality out of a white hole. Or is there a universe where there are only white holes, right? Like we have only black holes. Maybe there's a universe with only white holes and no black holes, and that's where all the energy goes. Maybe the sun is a white hole pulling energy out of a black hole. That's another understanding that we used to think. You're going to hear me quite a few times today saying used to think, because a lot of what we were taught, and I'm 38, a lot of what I was taught from 90 to 2000 in regards to astronomy have been completely thrown out of what they have believed is true, and they haven't spent the time to reinform us. So by doing this research, you get reinformed of what we're now realizing the universe, is. So could it be, instead of nuclear fusion, going back to what they said about suns, is there are 2 theories about a sun. How on Earth, or how in the cosmos really, is a sun creating all this infinite energy that lasts for so long, billions of years before it even dies out? Where is it getting its energy from? Oh, yes. It must be some sort of internal nuclear fusion, a theory, once again. So the other theory is that suns and stars could actually be white holes, meaning that the black hole is actually a sun somewhere else, and that our suns are actually the reverse side of a black hole, either in another dimension or within our own physical universe. And then another one is that a black hole could be the reversal phase of a supermassive black hole, because we have now seen that black holes become the opposite of a black hole and start spewing energy out within the center of galaxies at certain intervals within their existence. So could the supermassive black hole become a white hole spewing ether miles into space that eventually settles and coalesces at the ends of our galaxy, creating more material to begin creating more of the physical universe? And what I'm saying in that one is, could the supermassive black hole spew out matter that then comes down through the gravity of the Milky Way galaxy, coalesces and comes back all over the galaxy, and now becomes the building blocks to create more and more physical planets, stars, nebulae, whatever? The supermassive black hole that is at the center of our galaxy did let out a flare of radiation around 3.5 million years ago. So the answer to my last thing is, yeah, it looks like that could be the case, that a supermassive black hole could actually become a white hole. And part of that theory comes from this, that 3.5 million years ago, the black hole spewed out a bunch of matter and ether and particles from the center of it. Something that only things should be able to enter did the opposite. And it's thought to have been clearly visible from Earth. That's how intense it was. This discovery, it changes our view of our galaxy's central black hole entirely, which has appeared dormant through recorded human history. Stephen Hawking had actually proposed that while black holes get bigger by eating material, they can also slowly shrink because they're really losing radiation. Hawking radiation occurs because empty space, or the vacuum, is not really empty. And that's a whole other rabbit hole that I'm not going to go down, because I believe a lot of conventional scientists have a lot of truth, but they've also put a lot of agenda-oriented information in there. And specifically when it comes to Hawking, I have that belief. So could it be a white hole when the polarity reverses and spews out matter? It's estimated to be about 10 million to 1 billion, which is a huge difference, black holes in our galaxy alone, in our galaxy. These could be rips in space-time. Where is the light that is going through this rip in space-time going? If it's not going to another dimension, but it's going to a dimension within dimensions, because technically it's a rip in space-time, and is it just going into an astral realm where there's just pure energy now from this? Or is a black hole in a way dematerializing, and what we thought was energy will always exist? Maybe that's not the case. Maybe energy can be dismantled when it comes to the light being sucked into from black holes. So the Keck team here, I'm going to show you in the next slide, but the Keck team here, it was led by UCLA astronomer Andrea Ghez, has now identified a star that orbits the black hole in 11.5 years. The shortest orbital period of a star yet discovered. Just to show you how fast everything is moving around the center of our galaxy, the shortest orbit that we found is 11.5 years of a star rotating around that huge black hole. And to double down on the whole component of could a sun be a white hole? Well, if a black hole could also, or a wormhole could be used for travel for a spacecraft using certain force fields or energies to go through, could the sun, if it's a white hole, be a stargate that these craft can come out of? Some people believe that is the case. I think that's definitely a possibility as well. And images like this that were released on NASA's website, and this image right here that I'm showing you, I actually saw years ago on NASA's website when it came out, because this image got released and then it was on NASA's website. So I can verify and say to you, yes, this isn't a doctored image. This is exactly how it looked on NASA's website before they took it down. Some people believe that NASA, they just have no filter for their videos and images, and it goes up on their website and then they take a look at them yet later and bring them down. I don't think that's the case. I think they deliberately let things out there and then they take them down afterwards. That seems to be more evidence to suggest that. But if you can look at this image here, what does this look like? Well, you could say that there's a lot of things, and they have said that there's a lot of radiation coming from the sun, and this is something that's natural, even though they've never actually depicted or picked this up ever before, right? And it looks like that there's some sort of spherical craft ciphering and pulling energy from the sun. But this wasn't the only image. They found tens of these things on the same time. They all came on the website. This is the only one that I can find that's left on the internet that is everywhere now. And when they did, spectral analysis of this thing in order to see what it was made out of, it was a solid object. It like didn't seem like it was gas or radiation or anything like that. We can actually figure those things out. And look at the size of Earth right here. I forget how many times bigger it is because I know they did say it when this came out. They said how much bigger it is, but you can tell the difference. Let's say what 15 to 20 Earths can fit in this thing. So what is it? Why is it so big, right? And if you know any information about the other disclosure or the other piece of information that NASA released around 5-6 years ago, when they were looking at a constellation somewhere else in a galaxy, and that the star in that galaxy kept flickering on and off, on and off, on and off. So they started looking at that planet, and this is all mainstream out there too. Started looking at that sun, and they were like, wow, why is this thing going so fast around the sun? Why is the orbit so fast? And they started taking a look at it, and they're like, okay, well, it's flickering on and off. Normally that means that there's something orbiting it, but it's orbiting in a place we didn't know anything to be. And then they took a look and they did an analysis on it, and it was some metallic structure, a metal-like structure that was there in the cosmos. And that they said that it should be maybe some sort of, even conventional scientists said that it looks like it's some sort of alien craft. That was the whole headline about it all. And then of course it gets swept under the rug. But if you look at any information with that, it's one of the largest anomalies ever. And what conventional scientists said after they realized it was a metallic structure, that maybe it's some alien civilization taking power from the sun in order to fuel the civilization. Right. So these are some of the anomalies that are being found, but aren't just being found in places where it could be photoshopped, are being found in places where these individuals seem to not maybe want this information to even get out there in the first place. Okay, so what is ether? We've heard this, and I spoke about ether a few times today. Ether is the fifth element, just like the movie. If you've seen the movie at all, the girl in there that was the ET that became the girl incarnated was the fifth element, ether, personified and manifested into a human being. The element that all other elements come from. On the physical world, we know 4 elements, right? Earth, wind, fire, and water. So where's ether? Ether exists. We have milk in the Milky Way galaxy. Why aren't we talking about that? Well, ether is the building blocks for all the other elements. Without ether, nothing would exist. Ether is the particles, the dust, the radiation, the energy coming from the center of our galaxy and throughout all of cosmos. Some people even say that the dark matter that they believe that they haven't proved exists is also a theory. The dark matter that holds everything together is the ether as well. So could the ether be the unlimited potential that can actually create all these physical objects? It creates stars, it creates nebulae, it creates minerals, it creates everything. Ancient and medieval scientists, they actually believe that ether is the material that fills the region of the universe above the terrestrial sphere. And in physics, they say the ether is the substance or field thought to be necessary as a transmission medium for the propagation of electromagnetic or gravitational forces. So again, ancient and medieval scientists, they thought that ether filled the region above the terrestrial sphere. Great explanation. Energy, frequency, vibration, matter, particles, radiation, whatever it is combined together, unlimited potential that manifests and goes down into the terrestrial sphere to create everything. And then in physics, they're saying that it's probably a substance, it's probably a field, it's probably necessary to transmit the electromagnetic and gravitational forces that create the universe. So they're saying the same thing, just in mathematical terms. To me, my definition of it is, ether is the 3D printing material for the physical universe that comes from the voice and place of no dimension. The void comes from the void, the place of no dimension. So it's basically just like a 3D printing machine. You get a 3D printing machine, you put in whatever material you need to put in that machine in order for it to create the cell phone case that you're going to 3D print, and then it starts creating it out of all of this like matter. So ether is the same thing, and then the universe, the physical universe, is the 3D printer that utilizes the ether as material to create all things that are physical within this universe. So could the ether that is sent to the ends of the galaxy after a supermassive black hole lets out all this energy and maybe becomes a white hole, And is it possible that the outskirts of the galaxy homes lower dimensional experiences due to the ability for 3D life to exist, and higher dimensional civilizations, beings, and realms are closer to the center? So let me explain that. If the matter goes to the ends of the galaxies and forms physical worlds, if when we get closer to the center of the galaxy, the frequency shifts, the speed increases, is it possible that that could be a connection of the way we incarnate in relation to having these physical linear experiences the further we are in the galaxy, to having these other dimensional experiences the closer we get to the center? Because technically we can't really live and survive in 3D reality if we were just to go, for example, on a planet in Sagittarius A. So could the ether be the building blocks to create 3D reality, and then it gets pulled closer to the center of our galaxy, and then the center of the galaxy becomes a white hole, sends matter out to the ends of the galaxy again, and then we start this cycle all over again? That's a possibility, I believe. So back to dimensions here. Now we're going to get a little bit into the science of what dimensions are. It's important to note that the term, I said this earlier, and I'm going to say it again, the term lowest is a human construct. When we speak of hierarchy within dimensions as one being better than the other. Also, higher frequency is not always a descriptive phrase when it comes to describing harmonious or more advanced dimensions. A great example is, we go, that guy's high vibe, or increase the vibration, raise the frequency. Well, the Schumann resonance, right? The frequency of Earth is a very low frequency. But there are frequencies that are higher than that are very disharmonic, that you might not really like. But the Schumann resonance is a lower frequency, but it's more harmonic for you and will give you a great experience of life. So that's a great example on why it's not always about higher vibration. It's not like, oh, you're vibrating at 1,000 now, so now your vibration is higher than the person before you that's lower than you. So I prefer to call them dimensions of experience because of what I just outlined there. The third dimension, again, has length, width, and height. And a dimension that adds solidity to two-dimensional experience is what the third dimension is. And then the fourth dimension is time. And we can look at this graph here at the bottom. We have 3 dimensions. We got height, length, and breadth, which is width. And then we got the fourth dimension, which is it being somewhere lodged in time space, right here, which is time. The fourth dimension seems like it could be an extra dimension of time or experience that some have said within spiritual community and disclosure, hey, why do you keep talking about going to the fifth dimension? Why are we forgetting about the fourth dimension? Well, I think the reason why we're not talking about the fourth dimension is because that maybe is not an actually dimension of actual physical experience, that we actually exist within the fourth dimension now. And the fourth dimension could also be something like the astral dimension, life between life dimensions, like a purgatory kind of place, or a place where apparitions and different spirits exist. So if we exist within 3 dimensions, and then we exist within the fourth dimension because we exist in time, technically the reason why we're not going to the fourth dimension is because we live within it now, and that we're actually shifting into a different frequency. And the 3 dimensions of time space is our linear reality, and the fourth dimension is this portal to this other reality. So physicists considered it space-time, the 4D, meaning a spatial dimension beyond the normal 3. So I just told you about what the spiritual community believes. Now I'm talking about what physicists believe. They believe the fourth dimension is a spatial dimension beyond the normal 3. New studies dedicated this dimension by studying black holes. So by the studying of black holes, that's how they believe and started realizing that there probably is a fourth dimension. And over here, RIT research has actually helped prove that Einstein's fourth dimension theory is actually probably true, and looking at it through the lens of the black holes. And scientists have confirmed the existence of the fourth dimension that Albert Einstein once predicted but could never prove. It is the biggest physics discovery in 50 years and will change the way we view our universe. And this guy goes, Einstein got it right. So this is back in 2016, right? So a lot of this information has been known even before that, for like 4 years, 5, 6, 10 years. So I feel we're going to be a lot of information, and a lot of technology has probably been created around this awareness already that hasn't been disclosed to the humans. to us, to the masses. So this image right here is now the geometry of the fourth dimension. Physicists, mathematicians, spiritualists, sacred geometry enthusiasts believe that there are different geometrical objects that actually represent dimensions. And the fourth dimension, since the fourth dimension exists within the third dimensional experience and is maybe a portal, astral reality, or time, technically it would actually exist within it. So the geometry of the fourth dimension should be within the 3D. So how would that look? So the terasect, this is how the terasect is created. We have two cubes. The fourth dimension, the terasect is a geometrical representation of fourth dimension in physics and mathematics. So you have two cubes here. We combine these two cubes together, right? And then if you look down below here, the two red cubes are outliers of things in space that are the fourth dimension, and then the other ones are all representative of the third dimension. To form a terasect, which is the fourth dimensional geometry, we take the cube and drag it at a distance in the fourth dimension. We cannot visualize exactly what this looked like, but it looks something like this: cube into cube. The terasect has a volume of L4. It is bounded by faces on 8 sides. The faces are cubes of volume. We know that there are 8 of them since its fourth dimensional axis must be capped on either end by faces, 2 cubical faces per axis. Once again, we cannot visualize all 4 of these capped dimensions. We can at best visualize three directions perpendicular to each other. We then somehow add in the fourth. So theoretical mathematics is theoretically for a reason, right? So this is what I'm showing you, what they're trying to figure out, and I'm showing you how this actually almost proves to me what we've been talking about for so long within this conscious movement. And now here's a better example of that. We have the two cubes. We have the two cubes merging, trying to merge together. And then finally, we have the merging of the cubes. And now we have the last cube here, which is representation of the fourth dimension. And now this next image is a GIF of how that would actually look. This is the terasect. A fine-tuned geometrical shape of how the 4D rotates and moves within 3D cube in order to give us this looping experience of linearity on this planet. So why are we talking about the fourth dimension? Well, to get to the fifth, of course. So the moving to the fifth dimension, what is that, right? It makes sense that the fourth dimension is skipped because of what I just outlined there, that, you know, it could be time. We could actually be in it right now. If you read things like the Law of One and other people, you see that they say that we're in the third density, which is already the fourth dimension, moving to the fourth density, which is the fifth dimension. So it makes sense that the fourth dimension actually could be physically skipped because it's not a place to actually exist within, because we're here now, and we are moving towards the fifth. If the fourth is a place of transition or dimension between dimensions, so to speak. So if we are moving to the fifth dimension, we could be moving to 2 dimensions of time and 3 dimensions of space that equals 5 dimensions. The integration point is the third point of the triangle. And this, I say here, what the Lyrans are looking for to achieve, and we're going to get into that later. So read that again. If we're moving to the fifth dimension, we could be moving to multiple dimensions of time, that then just the 2 points that we currently have, and multiple dimensions of space, which is what a lot of people believe means that we're going into a more fluid aspect of time, where time doesn't experience as linearity anymore. And then there's channelers and there's a lot of information out there that says that in the fifth dimension, there are actually 3 dimensions of time, 3 points of time, and it becomes a triangle. And the triangle is what is known as integration. And you have the duality at the bottom at the 2 points, and then you have the integration point at the top. And the whole realization of why we even exist and why Earth is around is because they want we are attempting to get to that triangle state. We're attempting to get to that point of integration, right? So if we're moving to 5D, we could be moving to the multiple dimensions of time. And for example, the Mayans, the Maya said in their prophecy about 2012, it was the end of ages. That was a prophecy, the end of ages. The whole component right there, that phrase right there, the end of ages, makes it that people started believing they meant the end of everything, the end of time, the end of existence, the end of the world. But what it could mean is the end of aging or the end of ages as we know it, right? We already know the beginning of new age, but the fact that they use the word ages implies time and implies linear time. So could it be that they're actually referring to the end of time as we know it and the beginning of a more fluid understanding of what time is, a bigger picture of time when we become secular rather than linear? This is the key component to realize our relationship with otherworldly beings, since if they exist in this dimension or in a higher dimension, right, quote unquote, higher dimension, they do not exist within linear time. Therefore, they are simultaneously existing with us because they exist in this reality that is just a dimension stacked upon us that really doesn't have time as a construct in the way that we believe it to be on Earth. So now we're looking at the fifth dimensional physicist belief of the geometrical shape of the fifth dimension. And it's called a pentarect. Early research on 5D space actually occurred in 1921. So this whole 5D element that we've been talking about, sending to fifth dimension, that's been around for quite some time, even before really spiritualists had taken it and became such a huge thing within us, you know. But all the way back in 1921, there was research on it, like mainstream research going on what is the fifth dimension. And I think it's going to be very interesting for you guys to see what they figured it could actually be. So early research back in 1921 was attempted to develop a theory that unifies the four fundamental interactions in nature: strong and weak nuclear forces, gravity, and electromagnetism. So the early research on 5D space was how can we unify the interactions in nature? Strong and weak nuclear forces, the polarity of that, gravity and electromagnetism. That's very, very amazing, I feel, because what are they attempting to do there? They're saying that the 5D space is a reality in which all these opposing forces start working harmoniously together. The dimension would not be directly observable. Check. Klein suggested that the 5D would be rolled up into a tiny compact loop. Under his reasoning, he envisioned light as a disturbance caused by the rippling in the higher dimension just beyond human perception. While not detectable, it would indirectly imply a connection between seemingly unrelated forces. Okay, let's break that down a little more. Klein believed that light, as we see it, is actually a rippling effect of light in a higher dimension having this outcome in which we're seeing light as we know it, but this is actually a product of higher dimensions. And whether that's true or not is definitely along the same lines of what we're researching within this disclosure spiritual awareness that we're all involved in here. So while not detectable, it would indirectly imply a connection between seemingly unrelated forces. Because guess what? Everything is related and interconnected. But in this 3D/4D reality, we see everything as separate, things that aren't connected, don't have any interaction with each other within the cosmos, but ultimately they all do. And what we're realizing when we go into these other dimensions is that these forces start to work together to create harmony. So the 5D in physics, the Kaluza-Klein theory experienced a revival in the 70s, so around 50 years later, due to the emergence of superstring theory and supergravity. The concepts that reality is composed of vibrating strands of energy in 10 dimensions or more. M theory suggests a potentially observable extra dimension in addition to the 10 essential dimensions, which will allow for the existence of superstrings. So this is what basically it got a revival when we started realizing quantum physics and superstring theory came around and started talking about all these dimensions. Then individuals were going back to the 1921 words of Klein and saying, wait, they were talking about 5D there. What can we get from this information and utilize now in order to explore 5D some more? It is difficult to directly observe the fifth dimension, as Klein said, and through what I believe as well. Though the Large Hadron Collider, supposedly they're saying, provides an opportunity to record indirect evidence of its existence by doing things like seeing light rip from other realities and dimensions and seeing waves and particles acting similarly in which they do not even one particle basically acts like two. So they're basically seeing that there's some sort of dimensional disturbance, warping going on there while they're doing what they're doing in Geneva. Physicists theorize that collisions of subatomic particles in turn produce new particles as a result of the collision, including a graviton that escapes from the fourth dimension, leaking into the fifth dimensional bulk. Many people have said, wonder what they're doing at Geneva, wonder what they're figuring out. Someone even said, there was an article a while ago that I don't think is probably true, but someone was saying that, oh, they figured out, they created a hole in a black hole in Geneva and we're all going to be doomed soon. Obviously, that didn't happen. So there's been a lot of conspiracies around what are they doing there? What are they learning? Well, here you go. Here's the information that they're saying that they're doing. They're trying to figure out if there are other dimensions as well. This is their own research. Physicists theorize that collisions of subatomic particles, which is what they're doing there, in turn produce new particles as a result of the collision. Particles that didn't even exist in this reality came from a collision of those, including what's known as a graviton that escapes from the fourth dimension. This seems to me like very preliminary science for interdimensional travel and leaking off into five-dimensional bulk. So a 4D being a doorway to 5D. They said it right here, guys. They believe that this particle is coming from a fourth dimension, and their own belief, without like going to these presentations that we go to, they're saying that a fourth dimension comes off from that collision and leaks off into a five-dimensional reality. Utilizing this when using a magnet to lift a pin off a table, the magnet is able to overcome the gravitational pull of the entire Earth with ease, utilizing this concept. Wait a second. The magnet is able to overcome the gravitational pull of the entire Earth with ease using technology and information that we're finding in Geneva that is actually getting a particle from the fourth dimension that seems to be ending up in the fifth dimension. I don't know, my mind runs wild with that, but I'm really sticking to hardcore verifiable information here. So I'm not going to go into my deeply esoteric beliefs until in the end when we have conversations, because if we want to talk about that, we can. Okay, so galactic dimensions breakdown. Superstring theory, as I just said, says there are 11 dimensions, but could go up to 13. There is a possibility that as the density of the entire planet shifts in relation to the distance from the center of the galaxy, the dimension can also change. So could it be that the closer to the center of the core galactic center, our dimensions increase, and not only do we know that what we perceive in our Milky Way galaxy is in direct relation to our positioning with the galactic center, but could our positioning with the galactic center also influence the dimension that we're in? Theoretically, and maybe even physically, that should be true, because if it's gravity is pulling us in and the gravity is so intense, the frequency will shift on the planet. And could there be 12 dimensions of universal experience and the 13th dimension being the void in the center of the black hole, maybe in the center of all black holes, maybe it's the same void when you go through every black hole in the center of the galaxy. So 12 dimensions of physical experience, meaning that you could actually be a quasi-physical being within the 12 dimensions, but live in the universe. You can be a 12th dimensional light body apparition, pure energy, but still exist within the physical universe of the physical galaxy. And then you go to the 13th dimension, and then you enter the void, because it is believed that there are, superstring theory says at least 11 dimensions of physical experience here, but then 12 dimensions is what many people believe as well. And then we have the number 13, which is always about the 12 within the one, the 12 within the one, 12 dimensions and the one void. And if you look at books such as The Bringers of the Dawn, the channeled Palladian information, it's said in there that we have 12 chakras that we can tap into on Earth, and each of those chakras represent a dimension of experience within our galaxy, and we're able to be 12 dimensional beings that live on this fourth dimensional, third dimensional planet. So there are multiple dimensions of space and time. That's pretty much proven now. In the higher dimensions, we exist as light beings, could be energy, stars, and then as we go into other dimensions, we can be quasi-physical, half light, half flesh, whatever that means. And then we can become what we are now, complete physicality within linearity. The number 13. I just said 12 within the one, which equals 13. Seen throughout ancient texts, usually 12 within the one, which equals 13. And we know that number 13 has been demonized. It's been taken out of hotels. It's been made to be an unlucky number. But what happens usually from those that are in the know but do not want us to know information because it might make them lose power and end up in our regaining our sovereignty, those kind of things are hijacked. So the number 13 was hijacked. It's a reminder of our connection to source. So we see it everywhere, but we also see it taken out from the world in order to disconnect us from that realization. For example, we had Jesus and the 12 apostles, 12 within the one. We have the 13, the sacred number of the Maya. We have 13 letters in the name of God. We're believed to even be banned since the number connects us to our divinity and aligns us with the galactic center. We usually find sacred texts speaking. I got to do a detour right here. Seed of God. You might have heard that in many ancient scriptures, especially the Maya. The seed of God is the galactic center. The central sun said all over ancient scriptures, isn't talking about the sun in our solar system. It's talking about the galactic center, the central sun, right? So all these ancient civilizations, when they were referring to God, a lot of times when we have sun god civilizations, they aren't even worshiping the sun. They're worshiping the central sun, the sun of all suns, the 8 million mass sun in the center. So it's believed that I just told you two other things that align us to the galactic core. So it could actually be that when we talk about this, we're actually aligning ourselves to the galactic core when we speak about the number 13 intentionally, and when we realize the connection of this number all throughout ancient history. So we usually find sacred texts speaking of the 12 within the one, potentially representing the 12 dimensions within the void, which all manifest from. And then, of course, the 12 chakra system. And then we have the 13 zodiacs. There used to be 13 zodiacs. One was the serpent. It was taken away. There used to be 13 months when we were on a lunar calendar. It was taken away. So the number 13 was made 12. Now we're getting into the void. When I say the galactic center, I'm talking about the black hole right there, the light around it, or the bulging stars, the 8 million sun infinite mass. When we talk about the void, we're talking about inside of that, where there is no dimension, a place of no space, no time. Could it be that each galaxy may be involved in its own karmic cycle with its own laws of physics, and we kept getting recycled? Do we incarnate into this galaxy and then we get pulled closer and closer to the center of the galaxy? Our frequency shift. We become all types of different beings. We go off and populate the other sides of the galaxy and the cosmos. And then one day our soul re-enters the void in the center. And then we have an opportunity to either come back and relive that cycle again, or we can go to different dimensions, different galaxies, different parallel realities. And I'm just saying this very lightly right now. They could really honestly be an hour-long discussion on why I maybe think that could be true. But it could be that a lot of ancient scriptures have talked about this too, and even new researchers that, and even channeled material, that a cluster of galaxies have certain connections together. And then within those galaxies, each galaxy has a localized cluster that they are directly involved in regards to the ascension and evolution. That, for example, the Earth, we're going alongside different Sirius and the planet of the Essassani, which Bashar channels. We're actually have the same exact triangle makeup and are moving as a triangle together towards the closer of the center. So do we have direct karmic connections to those that we're doing that with? And then it keeps going out, and then eventually includes other galaxies. Are other beings from different galaxies able to come to our galaxy utilizing the black hole in the center, or do they have some sort of other travel device where they can leave their galaxy and then come to our galaxy? But are they even able to come here if they don't have some sort of direct karmic connection to us? Are we evolving alongside Andromeda galaxy? And that's why the Andromeda galaxy civilizations we've known about coming to Earth for quite some time, and there's been all these individuals speaking about it. So these are kind of some of the questions that I have here. The void in the center is a gateway to another dimension, universe, and or galaxy. What happens if you're able to go through that thing? Maybe it's a doorway for the planet if the civilization has already gone out to inhabit other worlds. So what if in the future let's say a few thousand years from now, we're a spacefaring civilization and we go out to inhabit other planets, other solar systems. When our planet gets to the center, because eventually it's going to be pulled to the center and gets recycled, the planet also has its own consciousness. Is that the moment that the planet can decide to incarnate somewhere else? Is that the moment that all the beings that have a direct connection to Earth now have a decision to go out and experience something else? Or are we able to do that in every single life cycle? You know, is the karmic cycle something that we're connected to until we outlive and get certain evolution, or are we able to break free from it as we, you know, transition into each life? So maybe once we complete the cycle, we have a choice to come back or move on. Intergalactic civilizations, like beings from Andromeda, closest biggest galaxy to us, may have some sort of karmic connection. Once a civilization reaches a level of consciousness, they are not limited by their planet and they can travel to other galaxies to observe and communicate with the locals. And it's perfect because to transition back into what we're discussing today is I'm going to do my poem on fragmentation. So we've been speaking about the void, right? And this poem right here is my poetic representation of void and reincarnation. And the MC resonance right there is incorrect. It's at I_am_resonance on Instagram. So you guys can go ahead and follow me there for Portal to Ascension info, and then also poetry, spoken word, and conscious rap. Here we go. The void. In the beginning, there were no words, no concept, no winning, no place, no time, no description, no label, and no finishing, until awareness became conscious of itself. Separation from the source, no east, no west, no south or north. Not to mention there never existed a dimension or ascension or physical essence, except for the 0 point. There was no Christ to anoint. Singularity, energy, frequency raised vibrationally, paradoxically into limitation of what only the five senses can see. No linearity, no anarchy, no galaxies, no nebulae, no jobs, no nature, no materialism, and no political lies, until darkness finally fragmented from the light, using free will to see through the night. The darkness. I take the anxiety pill full of fright. In my bed, insecure from the conspiracy that might take over my mind, control me with a chip inside, scared and full of fear. That is the reason why we're here. To the star system of Arcturus, I stare and recite my cosmic prayers. Self-empower the fabric of victim consciousness, I tear. The light. You see, everybody, the destination has already been chosen. It's the journey that counts. Every day we transcend, no doubt, living in the now, realizing it's all a projection of a co-creation of our own subconscious mind. Channel energy through the heart, remembrance of the divine. Take apart my ego and restart my life in any moment. I'm going home, traveling across the black intergalactic ocean. I took the psychedelic potion, now I'm awoken. To the streets we take the spoken word. Fly high, levitate the God inside. I'm free like a bird. Cosmic oneness integrating in my being. A full spectrum being in alignment with the purity confined in ranges of frequencies inhibit what we are seeing. I shift what I choose to believe in, fuel my light body for the ether I am feeding. So that's kind of like there's three components here. The void, right? The center of the galaxy. The darkness, which is coming and incarnating on Earth, and the fear and the anxiety that we have on this planet. And then the light, which is where we're ending up. So it's just like this infinite loop. So my theory really is that each galaxy is running its own program, karmic cycle, experiences, laws of physics, but they are connected. And when I say laws of physics, I don't mean like the equal and opposite reaction component no longer exists in that galaxy. Maybe it does. I mean, scientists haven't gone there. I haven't gone there, but I did have someone say to me the other day, like, they don't, laws of physics into other galaxies, BS. But I'm not saying that those components, but I'm saying the way the structure is could break down, because we do know different geometrical shapes actually form the equations for the formation of other galaxies that aren't like us. So there's something different there. So could it be that their own programs and cycles, but we have connection with them as well? So we're intricately connected to galaxies closer to us because we see that we're moving alongside them in space, and some of them are coming towards us. Does that have anything to do with how we're karmically connected to them? However, our immediate stage of experience is our galaxy, which is a localized galaxy. And it looks like there's cycles within cycles that are going on here, right? Not only are we rotating around the black hole in the center of our galaxy, but it seems like all the galaxies in the universe are rotating around a central point in the universe. That in itself doesn't make sense in a paradoxical universe, a central point in an infinite universe. How does that work? So again, here we are kind of somewhere in between the end of our galaxy and the center right there. Now, here's the question of the hour. Where is ET? How does this all connect to the galactic origins? We're going to get into the galactic origins now. Why can't we see ET? Why did they not just land on the White House lawn? That's something that has been said many, many times. It's almost like kind of funny now. Like I almost expect it from someone who maybe doesn't, when you communicate about this, it would be like, well, why didn't they just show up to governments? Why didn't they just come on the White House lawn? Why aren't they here to help us? You know, look at the world situation now. What's going on? There's nefarious plans, there's agendas. Why aren't they coming here? Why can't they save us from this ourselves, right? If they exist, if they're there, if they have some sort of ancestry to us, if they love us, why? Well, if they're everywhere, why can't we see them? These are the questions. Well, the answer to that is it's a frequency game. The reason why we can't see them is because it's a frequency game. And in order to drill that point down a little bit more, is that we now know that we can quantify that realities and frequencies exist that we can't perceive, right? That we can only see a certain light on the light spectrum. We can only hear a certain amount of frequencies and audio. We can't hear everything. And a great example of that is a dog whistle. Humans cannot hear a dog whistle, but a dog can hear a dog whistle. So what is going on there? There is a frequency that is being emitted that the dog is able to pick up on that humans can't. So we can prove that realms of frequency and vibration exist. We know that all things that are in physical reality are truly vibration and frequency on the subatomic level. So now we know that realities exist that we cannot perceive. But can we interact with them? That is the question. We know that humans, we hear about 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. So there's definitely over 20 kilohertz, there's under 20 hertz, and we only perceive and see visible light on the light spectrum. Some light we cannot see, however, we can still measure and utilize it. And a good thing, a good example of sound is ultrasound. You can't see ultrasound, right? But you can definitely use it. We use it in hospitals all the time. You can't see radio waves, but it's being utilized. We found out that we can utilize it. For a while, we didn't even know that existed. So we're tapping into these realities now. And then when it comes to light, lasers, right? There's lasers that you can't even see and perceive. It can have an actual effect on someone and create all types of situations, right? Utilizing a laser. And then we also have about 400 types of scent receptors that can detect around 1 trillion different odors. But guess what? There's actually over 1 trillion odors in existence. So we even know that there's a limitation on what we can smell. So the previous estimate, though, for how much we could smell, how many odors, was 10,000 scents. So look at the big difference there, 10,000 to 1 trillion. Just to kind of show you really how our understanding of ourselves are changing all the time. That just because someone says that this is what it is and this is how it is, and we've even done research and we found 10 different websites proving it, just being open to the fact that this could change is really important, because what's happened within science, especially mainstream science, is that when certain laws and theories are presented as if they're grounded actual physical fact, we go forward with that without the realization that there could be so much more, and it creates inhibits progression, really. So mainstream research, meditation studies, and studies of plant medicine experiences show that these boundaries can be broken as we stimulate and activate other parts of our brain, possibly even our DNA. So when we shift our frequency, this is my own quote, when we shift our frequency, we can see. So now what if I told you that what you just saw right here is not how it really looks? That's not how it looks. If you were able to be a satellite, if you were able to be the Hubble Space Telescope in that position where it is right now, your eyes were the lenses, you could take a picture, right? Let's just say you could do that. You would not see this as it is. Chances are you might see some clouds, some gas, and stars in the distance, but it'll pretty much be very, very dark and very black. The reason why we see it like this is because it's a frequency game. We're able now to perceive frequencies that we weren't able to perceive before. And what we've done there is frequencies of these gases have been translated into color. So they've showed us this in order to show what it looks like, but it's not even really that, because these are just the color representations of the gases within it. So even what we're seeing here isn't truly what we see about space. That's how manipulated our, whether it's intentional or not, how manipulated our view of the cosmos really are. I'm sure there are people at home that when they astral travel, they might go through this Crab Nebula, right? That's how ingrained this is, that these are the things that we see in our dreams, because this is what we've shown that space looks like. But it's not really taught to people that this is actually just enhanced images utilizing frequencies in onto the color spectrum. So also some images include colors that are correlated to sound frequencies that rather than light. So even sound, if there's a vibration or frequency, that's even translated into color in some of these images, which creates a very distorted view, beautiful, but a very distorted view of actually how it will look to the physical human eye. And it's because we have technology that's able to perceive frequencies and dimensions and realities that we're not able to do with our own eyesight. We have now reached the stage in technology to prove these dimensions and realities and realms and frequencies exist, which takes us into the advanced tech or the advanced human technology. We know these realities exist. And we also know we cannot perceive them directly. So what is the next step? We can create technology to perceive and travel to those realities. And that's what's happening. When I talked to you about the Hydrogen Collider, whether they have a nefarious agenda or not, that's what they're doing there. When people are dealing with sound frequency chamber devices, Rife frequency machines, those are frequencies that we aren't able to perceive and directly interact with, where we're creating technology now in order to be able to utilize those, those frequencies, those dimensions, those whatever. So that is one component. We're definitely starting to use it, and we're seeing it permeating throughout all of reality. And we're going to get into some, more technology that is coming out in a bit here. But then another element is, are we able to travel to those dimensions or realities in which we're unable to perceive, but we know it exists? Is that a possibility? And a lot of whistleblowers, a lot of scientists would say yes. And definitely many spiritualists are now realizing, that, well, a lot of conventional scientists are now realizing that a lot of this technology is the preliminary stages for us understanding how we can travel to these dimensions that we're realizing do exist. We can create machines that can assist, but we're now learning the potential in our own bodies to be able to tap into this reality. So I want to make a differentiation here. I'm talking about advanced tech, external tech, advanced human tech, internal tech. Not only are we able to create external technology, but we're also able to do similar things utilizing our own bodies. That's how advanced our bodies are. Ancient scriptures speak about celestial beings and even craft that they experience when in a state of consciousness, utilizing meditation, yoga, plant medicines, and so much more. So can we use our own bodies to see? Some humans were just connected enough to the earth to perceive. For example, the Aborigines of Australia have many stories of different star beings that were visiting them and gifted them the didgeridoo. And the didgeridoo was actually a tool for them to be able to create a portal for